Well, a wonderful good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Peter, Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to you, wherever you are, on this glorious, fantastic Friday morning. Is the 20th day of the month of January. Yes, you heard me right, the month of January, and indeed it's a pleasure being here with you, as always, on To The Point. I'm Joseph Cadore, and I say thanks for being part of today's conversation. Special welcome to those who are just rejoining us on television. That's GBN's Channel 7, Channel 11, and Channel 20 if you're in cable, or you're following us via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd. And we say a special good morning to those of you that's on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. Good morning, and thanks for being part of the conversation. As advertised, and we did intimate that my guest this morning would be from the Child Protection Authority, and she's no less a person. And I'm not sure how to introduce her. Should I introduce her in a formal title, or should I say the girl I loved before when she was at the GBN? And I know, Blossom, good morning, I know for a fleeting moment in time, when I played that song, you swore it had everything to do with you. When I talk about it, it was all coming back to me. I just want you to know in National TV, it had nothing to do with you. But
Joe,
good to see you, my dear old friend.
That's what you want the listening and viewing public to believe, but we both know differently. We both know you'll still love me. We both know I'm your number one girl. I mean, let's just accept it. Good morning to all the listeners and viewers of GBN. Good morning to all the listeners of Classic, my family, my friends. I know it's been a while since you've heard my voice and seen my face on this channel. I do miss you guys. It's been a while, but it's kind of weird being on this side of the table.
And I guess you can appreciate who runs the grease engine now, right? This is me.
I can't wait to give you instructions on when to take phone calls. Happy New Year, Joe.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, listeners and viewers.
What have you been up to? The Child Protection Authority is an organization that we've heard about for years.
Yes.
But sometimes we still get the sense that a lot of individuals doesn't quite appreciate your daily role and function. What do you do at the authority?
Correct is right, Joe. The Child Protection Authority, we were established in the year 2010. And primarily our job is to protect the nation's children. That's the short of the matter. But there are times when members of the public, even sometimes our clients, would kind of confuse our role with other organizations such as the Ministry of Social Development, Legal Aid, and Counseling. So we have spent a lot of time trying to educate members of the public about what we do exactly and what we are responsible for. Yes, we are responsible for protecting children, but there are other aspects to that we do not necessarily tackle ourselves, or at least not solely by ourselves.
You said some of your clients. Who are some of those clients?
Primarily children, but generally families, because children, they all come attached, whether it's biological families, adoptive families, foster care families, because not mostly, but we deal with children who are abused. And when it comes to abused children, we need to bring everyone who's in that child's life into the picture. So while our primary concerns would be the children, we also deal with their families as close-knit as can be, or those involved in the child's upbringing.
And we can reasonably assume, given the mandate collectively, because if you're dealing with a child, you must deal with the children, depending on what it is, auntie, uncle, the entire family circle. You have a network of different organizations that work
yes,
with you.
Correct. At the Child Protection Authority, we provide counseling to the children. We provide immediate care, whether it be housing. We have the foster care program. We have adoption services, but there are also legal advice that some of our clients would seek. That's where legal aid and counseling would come in. There are those who are seeking other assistance that we may not be able to readily provide. That's where the Ministry of Social Development comes in. So it's a hand-in-hand collaborative effort when it comes to child protection. The Royal Grenada Police Force also gets involved according to what the situation is. So it's really a number of organizations concerned.
So there are cases where you address the issue directly, and other cases where you serve as the gatekeeper
Correct. When we get to the issues of child abuse, that's primarily where we are. When it comes to the issue of missing children, the Royal Grenada Police Force will be the first point of contact most times, and then we get involved. Sometimes when it comes to parents seeking assistance, there have been parents who've reached out to us when it comes to child maintenance, and daddy has a court order but he's not living up to it. Then we refer them back to the court system. So we really need to get everybody involved, because you never know which organization we would need to contact according to the situation.
What are some of the daily key issues that you deal with as it relates to primarily children that have been abused, taken advantage of? How would you on any given day handle or start process investigating any such report?
Reports come in various mediums. Sometimes people would, when you know an employee at the Child Protection Authority, you would meet them in the street, or you would call them if you have that kind of relationship. You would message them on Facebook and say, this is the situation. I am in charge of the company's social media, so sometimes we get messages via the DMs with sometimes the children themselves or the parents. We also have people walking into the office when we were physically at the H.A. Blaze Street. We'll get into that a little bit later. But we have people walking into H.A. Blaze Street. We have people calling us on our emergency contact number. And the first thing we do is take the report, pass it on to one of our child protection officers, and then the investigation begins into what that report is, whether it be abuse, whether it be abandonment. We have different forms of abuse that we get reports of. The number one of them being sexual abuse. So according to the report, that would determine the which child protection officer gets involved and the level of investigation that we do. That's what happens once we get the report. The primary thing is to investigate, as I call it.
And that investigation process can sometimes be quite sensitive.
Yes, it can be, especially when you're dealing with children, minors. You always have to be sensitive because they're already dealing with trauma. And in the investigation process, you ask them questions that can bring up the memories and possibly re-traumatize them. So you always have to be sensitive. You have to be cautious with how you carry out the investigation. You speak to the immediate family members. You speak to neighbors if that's what it takes. You speak to teachers, anybody who may have information. But there's a way that you need to go about it, which is why I give kudos to our child protection officers, because it can get taxing. It can get emotional. You can feel as though, okay, I don't want to deal with this, but you have to. And they have such intestinal fortitude to deal with the things that they deal with on a daily basis. So big up to all our child protection officers out there who are continuing to do the great work in protecting our children.
Take me through as best as you can. Paint a picture for me what a basic investigation, the flow. So as you said, a report is made, investigation. What are some of the relevant information that must first be gathered so as to give teeth and life to that investigation? Right.
Depending on who makes the report. We do have victims making the report themselves, but sometimes we also have, whether it's a neighbor or somebody who witnessed it. If it's, we take the names. We would make leeway for anonymous reporting, because there are a lot of Grenadians and everybody knows everybody, and they're always skeptical about leaving your information. If you would like to remain anonymous, we would allow that. But there are times when you would need more information. So we would need you're the person making the report, we would need your name, your contact information, what did you see? So in case that we need to get back to the person who made the report to verify some more information, we can do that, because we don't want you to just call and say, I don't want to leave my name, I don't want to leave my number, but Bob is being abused, and they put on the phone.
But
Who
the
is
truth
Bob?
is, I don't want to leave my name.
Fair enough, but you have to be able to provide the information that we can find the child who is being abused. So when you call and you say, Bob is being abused, Bob living in Willis, and they put on the phone, which part of Willis? Bob is a popular name. Which Bob are we talking about? So it may take more than just you calling and saying that and leaving. But if you call and you say, okay, my name is Blossom, I'm reporting Bob, but I can't talk for long, or you'll call me back later. And then we can always call you back and get more information on Bob. Where does Bob live exactly in Willis? What did you see? And then we investigate. We would try to speak with the child once the child is of age to be able to divulge that information. The Royal Grenada Police Force gets involved. And according to, how should I put this? Depending on the levels, we may need to immediately remove the child from the home. If the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator is in that home, we need to find temporary housing or accommodations for that child. So all that needs to be taken into consideration if it needs to happen.
And I'm assuming that's what makes it even more, much more of a delicate process, in that, I mean, while there's an issue of a child being abused or having been emotionally disturbed in whatever way or the other, the question of removing them from their parents or their home, that in itself can also add another
level of trauma.
Another level.
And that's misconception members of the public have. There are a lot of times we hear the comments that we just, and I speak in dialect here, we just take out them children in the parents' home and put them where we want. That's the last resort that we want to do, especially when they are young children. Removing a child from the comfort of their mother's home or their father's home can re-traumatize that child. We don't want to do that. We don't want to upset the child more than he or she is upset. But there are times when we have no other option, especially when the alleged perpetrator is in that home, or the perpetrator is a neighbor, or the perpetrator is a relative or a friend of the family who frequents that home. We cannot leave the child or children in that environment where they are abused and say, okay, we don't want to take them out because we don't want to anger the public. Our interest is in the best interest of the child. And if the best interest is to remove them from the environment, that's what we would do.
We've had conversations with the Special Victims Unit, which is one of your associate bodies.
Correct.
And very often, in the cases of abuse, it is very often you hear it's the perpetrator is not necessarily strangers.
Correct.
It's individuals, family, persons that they're acquainted with.
Unfortunately, more often than not, it is somebody known to the child or children, and that in itself adds another level of trauma. Being abused by a stranger, it's different being abused by mommy, daddy, uncle, brother, sister, auntie, whomever it may be, because it's somebody that you felt safe with, and then you realize, I'm not safe with that person. So it's always more heartbreaking, if I can put it that way, especially when it's somebody known to that child. You break that level of trust, it'll be hard to get that child to trust anybody for that matter.
And that's where the real challenge is. I know some people might be saying abuse is abuse. If you walk down the street and a stranger hits you, let's not even get into the abuse, so that persons can appreciate. I walk down the street and a stranger walks up to me and they slap me. Okay? I walked on the street, Blossom walks up to me
and
she slaps me. That's like a double shot.
It is.
Blossom?
It is.
What did I do to Blossom? I know I start to mentally unravel when and how. And
exactly. And that's part of where some of the victims blame themselves, especially when you're on an older victim, if I can put it that way, like teenagers. That's when they start to analyze what they did wrong, or that's what they perceive they did wrong, because they were friendly with Uncle Tom, or they were kikiing with Auntie Jane, and is the same person that turn around and abuses. I send mixed signal, is this my fault? And that adds to the trauma that these children face regularly, unfortunately.
And you would certainly have to say to parents that we need to be conscious and cognizant as to whom the circles that we allow. So, a child is growing up, this is Auntie so-and-so, this is Auntie so-and-so, Uncle so-and-so. And we open the floodgates. But even in our current construct, where society is, so as an agency, you will encourage and try to educate people, parents, as to, you don't want to be still seen as being paranoid, but certainly there's something you must keep your sixth sense open. But how important is it, Blossom, for parents to be able to listen to their children?
Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point in society where you can't trust any and everybody with your child or children. How you were raised by the village, let's say 40, 50 years ago, you can't do that in 2023. You always have to watch somebody with a side eye, even daddy and mommy, unfortunately. And that's where it comes with communication. I am big on communication with your children. No matter how young you think they are or how old you think they are, communicate with your children. Establish that rapport with your children where they can come to you with anything. Another important thing is observation. Children have a sixth sense. And they themselves may not understand why they have the sixth sense, but they have it. You know that saying, your spirit in give?
Right.
Children have that. They may not be able to voice it. They may not be able to say, my spirit and give it Joseph because, but there's something about it. Pay attention to how your children react around certain people. If yesterday they were all jovial with Uncle Tom, but today they're staying away, pay attention.
They're not necessarily being rude.
They're not being rude, but there's something there. If they are staying far from the neighbor, if you're sending them for a cup of sugar by the neighbor, and after a while they say, Mommy, I don't want to go for the cup of... Pay attention. Have that communication. Have that rapport where daughter, son could come and say, Mommy, Daddy, you know. Establish that. I have a 2-year-old at home, and we talk. I ask him, how was your day? Did anything make you happy? Did anything make you sad? He doesn't know what I'm asking him. He would watch me and go, huh? He don't know what I'm asking him, but I'm making sure that he knows he can come to me whenever.
I normally refer to mine as my daily debriefing sessions.
Amen.
And it cannot be something, that debriefing, as I call it, cannot just take place when you go home. When we get home, I WhatsApp, okay, I'm home. How was your day? What happened? What didn't happen? Tell me. I want to know. A teacher, what happened? And you have to get to the point where your children, they see you not just as mommy and daddy that's going to scold me if I do something wrong, but that individual that I can trust with and that would understand and connect with my emotions as well.
Correct. And I learned this from clinical psychologist Shauna Coffey. Good morning, Miss Coffey. It's not just about asking, how was your day? That's an open-ended question, but get into specific details.
Yeah.
Like I said, what made you happy today? Did anything make you sad today? How is your friend today? Did you talk with your friend today? What did teacher do today? So get into specific questions that can give you specific answers, or more answers than you would get if you just ask an open-ended, how was your day?
And it's not, and you would agree, it cannot be those probing question that makes the child gets bored.
Exactly, or make the child get uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is mommy asking?
Why mommy asking me that? Yeah.
Because imagine you start drilling the child, and then he goes to school tomorrow and tell Miss, because you know children. Every day I go home, Daddy asking me the questions about you.
Yeah, exactly.
That can create a little bit of challenge in terms of your relationship.
Exactly, Joe.
The teacher wondering, well, okay. But as you would agree, it has to be one of those nice, light-hearted
conversation and ease them into it.
Where they want to volunteer. You don't want to force it onto them.
Correct is right. You just want to make sure that you have that relationship with your child, your children, where they can come to you and not feel like, I can't tell mommy and daddy that, or I don't want to tell mommy and daddy that because of how they react. Have that rapport, have that relationship. Communication is key. Communication, observation is key.
How do you deal with that, though? And again, even there were cases where you would hear parents in families where a child would say, I'm telling mommy, I'm not going to tell daddy. And that sometimes could be a regular thing for different reasons.
True.
What advice would you give as to how do you deal with such a situation?
It depends on the family dynamic, because there are children who would feel freer talking about certain things with mommy compared to daddy, or vice versa, and it depends on the relationship that each parent enjoys with that child. So I would not necessarily want to interfere with how that dynamic is because of how that family deals with their situations, but it's just a matter of making sure that child can go to any trusted adult with whatever information. And I'm sure once there's pillow talk involved, mommy or daddy would share, okay, son or daughter came to me with this, and it usually gets around the family anyway. But it depends on how the dynamic is. So I don't necessarily want to say, okay, if son is not coming to you, this is what you should do. It's just how the child feels comfortable.
And the thing, and I'm agreeing with you, because then what needs to be done, that's not an issue necessarily regarding the child. It may just be how you interact with it. Because sometimes there's all, as you said, the dynamics, where they think, I'm not going to go to mommy because mommy will get vexed. Mommy will get vexed. Or if I go to daddy might just be a little bit more relaxed. He was going to listen. And then you hear him say, well, then the mother would say, well, daddy ain't going to bother with it.
Exactly.
So children then decide, and then you even have to understand that children in themselves, they sometimes they based on what it is, they would pick who to go to, right? Right? They'll pick who to go to. Not 20s, 19 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. My guest this morning from the Child Protection Authority is the communications officer?
The corporate communications officer, yes. Corporate.
And you notice how she lifted her lifted her diaphragm.
Give him a title.
Corporate. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll open the telephone lines. Reminding you, too, that you can share your comments via the WhatsApp portal in studio, which is the same as the in-studio number, and we can certainly take your contributions via the different social media platforms. To the point. We'll be right back.
want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery is doing for us. When you play pick 3 cash flow and play with, the NLA will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sunday money
Rep your colors. Hot 98 presents the 473 Colors Boat Ride. Going on Saturday, February 4. Get your tickets now at godofed.com for only $65. Food included. Boarding time 7 p.m. The boat sails at 7:30. Music on board by the Hot 98 DJs plus other guest DJs.
Baby, calm down, calm down.
Rep your colors on the boat, cause this one here is gonna be epic. Lock the date, Saturday, February 4th, Hot 98, 473 Colors Boat Ride. Don't you miss this.
Thank you. Welcome back to the program. 22 minutes gone past the hour of 9 o'clock. My guest this morning is Corporate Communications Officer in the Child Protection Authority, Blossom Alexis Welch. This is what happens when you have, we talked about pillow talk. There is conversation that takes place in the studio while you're on break. That Blossom, unfortunately, we just can't share or diverge any nature of what was discussed while we were on the break.
It'll change the image of us if we tell them.
It'll change the image of the program. But indeed, he said, thanks for being part of the conversation. We go straight to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yeah, morning, JC, and morning, Blossom.
Good morning.
I was confess I haven't been listening to the program thoroughly, but I overheard something, particularly that you and Blossom mentioned about relationship with your children. But first of all, if you don't have a relationship with yourself, if you haven't healed the parts of yourself, you might be endangering the child. And I say that because in the work I've done over the years, somebody who had sought my help revealed, and I'm cognizant of the fact that, you don't disclose things, the whole thing about protecting people, what people confidentiality. So I hope I wouldn't call no name, but this person told me that they had difficulty accepting affection from the boy child because what had happened to them in their childhood. I'm asking the question, is the Child Protection Agency or does the Child Protection Agency have any space or any scope of helping a parent like that? As I said, it happened to me years ago, the person had revealed that for me.
Okay.
Maybe even decades.
Thank you, caller.
And that's all I'll contribute this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, caller. What we do offer, we do have a counseling unit at the Child Protection Authority. We call it the Psychological and Treatment, PAT department, located on Scott Street. We do provide counseling for our clients, primarily our children. But in the case of that, the parent sounds like they were an abused child or they're an abuse victim. And that does sometimes trickle down into how you show and receive affection from your own children, unfortunately. We can provide support to that parent, whether it is through us or through another unit, like I said, legal aid and counseling, or even the Ministry of Social Development. They just need to reach out to us. If there are parents, adults out there who need assistance in whatever way, I'm sure there's an agency that can assist. Even if it's not the Child Protection Authority, there are other agencies that can provide that level of support to you. And I know there are members of the public who may be anxious about the confidentiality. That's not a concern of ours, because our primary responsibility is to you, our clients, who we call our family.
Indeed, we go back to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Good morning, Joseph and my loving Blossom. Good morning.
Good morning, Tanti. How you doing?
Not too bad, hanging in there. Happy to hear you this morning and to see your face on television. I don't see you always, but so that time you were there, and I say, look at my Blossom, and I can't talk to her. So how are you doing? Everything all right with you?
Yes, everything is good. Mommy's family, everybody's good.
God bless them. Give them love, and I wish you all the best for 2023. Take care of yourself and your health.
Thank you very much, Tanti. Have a good day.
Now, I will say a little bit about the children thing. Yeah. Because, we have some parents, the children have something happen to them in the school, they wouldn't talk. But whereas the teachers come in, they would talk to the teacher. Now, when teachers see a child come into school looking sad and what happened? Hi, sweetheart, come tell me what is happening. What is happening? Something happened at home. They don't want to talk about it. They will open up to the teacher, but they will not open up to their parents. So this is all things you have to look out for, the children. When I go to town, I see people that try and say, look, take care of them, and I love children. Take care of them. Don't abandon them. Don't leave them alone. Always keep them close. Hold their hand on the right side of the road. I meet a woman walking with a child. The child swinging in front of us, rocking, and another baby in one arm. I say, please, darling, please, for me, for my sake and your sake, put the child on the other side of the road, hold the child's hand, and hold it on one hand. So if you have two of them, one inside, hanging on her shoulder, and one holding her hand. You have to learn to treat children with love, because if they don't get the love that they get from their parent, who will they get it from? Parents have to understand you have to take care of children. They are your gift of life God gives to you. And when you have this gift, you take care of them when they're children. They're going to take care of you when they get adult, and they can't help them. You help yourself no more. They'll be the one helping you. I see a mother on the television with her son. He says, my mom take care of me when I was a child, so now it's my time to take care of her. He feed her, he wash her, and he make her feel under love. He said, Mom, I love you. She said, love you too, son. This is what we have to love with children. Love them. You're taking care of a child. You have to do the best you can. I take care of lots of children, and everybody find no fault, because I know how to love and cherish them. You rocking a child to sleep. You don't shake them. You rock them until they fall asleep, and you put them down, and you watch over them. You treat children with love, and they're going to get the love back coming back to you when they get older. This was my nanny. People tell me that, I take care of children from 1 year, 2 years, and they go till they have 3 years. They'll them on way to send them to school. They don't want to move from mom, but they have to go to school.
Okay, caller.
So let us be good to children and love and cherish them as a mother and a father to them, even though you're caring for them. God bless you, Blossom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanti. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Tanti, you made a valid point about teachers. Our teachers are sometimes our first point of contact when we carry out investigations. And as the adults who see children on a daily basis during their waking hours, sometimes more hours than mommy and daddy, you have to be observant. Unfortunately, we have some educators who, one, say that's not my business, and two, just don't care. There are those who, they may see something but not say something, or there are those who just missed the signs completely. And it's maybe one of the challenges that we have in the system, where our teachers are not not all, some are not as observant and as not forthcoming as they should be as educators.
Doesn't it have anything to do, Blossom, with the fact that we have, as compared to 30 years ago, when I got to say when you and I were in school, but then you would start telling me I went to school in 1942 and all that nonsense. But when we were growing up, we were in schools, we had parents themselves, mature individuals in school. I mean, good morning to my dear Vera McQueen, good morning to Ms. Hercules, good morning to you, Mr. Victor Ajwi. They were parents, adults, who understood the challenge of life. As compared to now, when you have a much younger generation.
Correct.
That in itself can add a challenge in how they, in what they can add to the conversation,
Correct.
the observance and all of that.
Correct. And age, I guess, has a lot to do with it. But to me, teaching is something that you have to have a passion for. And that's because you want to educate your children, you want to care for children. And part of that is being observant and knowing that it's not just you come, you write something on the board and you go home. But you have to be a parent teacher while you're a teacher. So
it's important, though, that relationship be established. You as a parent establish a relationship with the parent, with the teacher.
Exactly.
So the teacher can at least feel comfortable.
Exactly.
Like I say to my teachers at school, Jane in school, listen to me, you can correct him. I don't want you to abuse him. If he comes up and tell me you hit him in his back and behind his head, well,
there's problems.
But I don't have a problem if you have to correct him. Correct. And I say to them that feel free to appreciate that this education process is a two-way street.
Exactly. You have to be able to have that rapport with the teacher and vice versa. Establish that relationship where if the teacher observes something, they can say, I notice a bruise on Jaden's elbow.
Right.
Or she's more reserved than she usually is. She's more quiet in class. Is everything okay at home? Because that's part of the process in protecting our children, being able to see the changes in them. Mommy and daddy can't do it alone. It's not just the CPA. Everybody needs to get involved.
Everybody needs to get involved. There's a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning, JC,
Good morning.
and good morning, your guest. Blossom, good morning. This is Herman. How are you? Happy 2023.
If you don't mind, sir, Herman, if you don't mind, there's a device that's in the background. I know you're tempted, you want to hear yourself on the device. Could you just take the volume down or move away from it? I said take it off altogether, and let's conduct the conversation via the telephone.
Yes.
Hi, Herman.
Yeah, Blossom, good morning. Yeah. Your first caller alluded to something that I was in conversation. Well, this friend of mine, she made an observation. We were in conversation. She said that her son used to drop his son off to school. And like the first caller was saying, sometimes, especially among the male, showing the affection. So he used to hug the boy as he, let him go to go to his school. But what came up is that the other children who didn't have that, say, used to tease him. And, the parent was pressured to stop that, and I realized how much we as adults allow children to pressure us. Something was good when she should be continuing, and so that others would learn the good things. He decided to stop it, and I say, why? So I just wanted to share this. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. That's something, I think it's a phase sometimes children go through, because just the other day my mother was telling me at some point when she dropped me to school, I told her, Mommy, don't kiss me in front of school. But these days, who kissing up mommy more than me? It's just a part of peer pressure when your friends start making fun of you and teasing you, and you start to second guess if you really should be participating in that. I'm a big child. I don't need kisses in the streets. And it's a process.
But there's also the real challenge, though, I guess, because of how we grew up. When we did not, because very often, as I said in life, you can't give off or disseminate that which you haven't had an appreciation of. So I can't love or express love if I'm not used to it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm used to being loved in a particular way. If when my parents, they spoil me, when they start hugging me, you don't see it as love.
Right.
You distinguish as something else. But the part though about fathers showing affection to their boys. Mm-hmm. For some reason, even some men, they're not comfortable with that. I agree, as boys, they grow up. You can't want to have a 10-year-old, I want to hold his hand in tongue. Come on, little Jaden. I know that ain't going to happen. But certainly...
Why wouldn't it happen?
But you have to appreciate as children grow, they develop into their own personality.
True.
But the idea of course, I wouldn't tell Jaden, come and let me hold your hand in tongue. But certainly, I know he's going to resist it. Right?
Fair
but
enough.
certainly, hugging him and kissing him and saying to Jaden or saying to your boy child, Daddy loves you, I think is an important element in growing our children.
True. And you make a valid point. When it comes to the father-son relationship, it can get a little ticklish, with the way, especially with the way sometimes society thinks. I remember there was a picture circulating, a celebrity and his son. The son was maybe 14 or so, and the son was sitting in his lap. They were just chilling by the pool, and everybody was up in arms. Why are they showing that kind of affection? But I don't think gender should matter with how you show your children love. However, if the child is reluctant, like you said, Jaden may not want to hold your hand in public, you respect that boundary. But when it comes to telling your children how much you love them, boys, girls, fathers, mommies, I think it's important that you let them know. You don't just say, well, he knows I love because he's my son. There are times when you need to get that kind of conversation going. The love may come across differently. You may not be physical love where holding hands in public and hugging up on the bus terminal, but at least that verbal communication so that he or she knows that he does love me. He may not show me or hug me up like mommy hugs me up, but he does love me. He shows me love differently. So you just have to ensure that you have that relationship with your child. How you show love and affection, it depends on, again, the dynamic of the family.
A whole lot of different dynamics. We go to another caller. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Oh, yes. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to your guests. Now we know where you are. Ever versatile Blossom. I tell you are in the right place. People like you will get to
Thank
the top.
you.
But let me tell you, I'm giving you a title now. You are one of the flowers. You were one of the flowers lady of Grenada. Right? So this is part of your title. So
Thank you.
I'm giving you all of the title because we miss you. Trust me, we miss you. Versatile, can fit anywhere, so articulate. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
435-2041, 25 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock in the morning time. It's Friday. And for those of you that's probably just rousing from your slumber, yes, it is the 20th day. Blossom, have you started thinking about I'm getting paid next week?
Listen, all I'm thinking about is I feel like I've been in January for like 3 months now. Like, what? How is it just the 20th? Shouldn't we already be in February? Like, come on. I mean,
I heard a joke. A friend of mine said that January has 3 different stages.
Yes.
There's January Ultra, January Extra.
January adjacent, all kind of thing. Because, I mean, how is it just 20 days in January? Like,
how is it just 20
come true,
days?
payday, come true.
But the number on the inside, folks, in case you're just joining me, thank you and welcome to the program. My guest this morning, the Corporate Communications Officer from the Child Protection Authority, Blossom Alexis Welch. And this morning, we just literally scratching the surface as it relates to role functions of the CPA and being able, Blossom, to appreciate your role and responsibility as parents. Because I think very often the challenges that you face as a CPA comes down to what we as parents may choose to and not do. Mm-hmm. And I keep saying that everything that we do for our children, I call it an investment in them.
Amen. That's true. And that's probably one of the challenges. Well, it's not a great challenge, but if it's just one parent, it happens too often. There are parents who may not be as cooperative when it comes to finding out what's happening with their child or children, right. Especially when a report of abuse is made and the alleged perpetrator is a close relative, friend, daddy, uncle. They're not always cooperative. We've had instances of parents dissuading the children from going forward with the report or going forward with the case, unfortunately. There are times when we may be able to pursue or continue with the case, depends on the information that we've had, but there are parents who would dissuade their children from going forward with it. And I guess sometimes too, it's out of fear and not always maliciousness or intentional maliciousness to the child. But it's not always but it's never a good thing when you don't want your child to speak his or her truth.
But break down fear for me, because someone is thinking fear. Does the fear has to do with in the context of learning the truth about what has happened to the child, or is it fear because it's a family member or individual that you know who probably offers financial support to the family?
Both. It's a fear of losing the quote-unquote lifestyle that you have. Sometimes mommy is unemployed and the lone breadwinner in the house is the accused. What's going to happen to the family now? Or there's the fear of, if I continue to encourage my son or daughter to pursue this, he is going to beat me up. Or it's a fear of stigmatization and victimization from members of the public, because we still have that. You didn't know your husband was abusing the child. You didn't know your wife was beating up the child. And then you start to lose quote-unquote friends and family. And so there's a lot of things that come with it. But sometimes you just have to forget about you, forget about self, and focus on what's best for your child.
And there's also the reverse, because at some point is going to introduce a disruption to the family.
Yes.
Maybe it may have to be that person, father, uncle, as you said, they may have to leave. The question is, how does the child deal with that? And if not dealt with properly, they may end up, some people with the fear, she might hate me,
right,
because now you've taken away that person who I like or trusted, and then all of a sudden, mother, father, they can't deal with those emotions.
And sometimes there are cases where the parent would report the abuse and the child will feel like, why you did that? And then that hampers the relationship. So there are a lot of dynamics when it comes to child abuse that you have to take into consideration, where it's not just a simple surface issue of reporting and the perpetrator goes to jail, but there are other family matters that would need to be dealt with. I remember there was a case where we had to relocate the victim and her parent because the alleged perpetrator lives in the community, and that was the place to keep the perpetrator. So instead of the perpetrator being the one to leave, the victim and her mother needed to leave. So it's a lot of things that come into it that we need to consider when it comes to a case of child abuse. Each case is different.
We go back to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
I'm just listening here to what has been said, and I am just thinking of some report that has been made before, some report that was made in the past, when there was, the police officer was there, and she was saying that when asked, how do you define a child? And she said anyone under the age of 18 is a child. This is child protection we're talking about. But the other thing is that someone who is at least 16 is in a position to give consent to sexual intercourse. Now, how do you treat such a person, such a situation, when someone is 16 and over and not yet 18, and there comes a problem with sexual intercourse? I mean, how do you handle that? Because if anyone under 18 is a child, but when you're 16, you're able to give consent to sexual intercourse, a problem comes up now. How do you handle that sort of problem?
Thank you, sir.
And that's one of the discrepancies in our laws that kind of, should I say, hampers the work that we do, because like the caller rightly said, the age of consent is 16, but the definition of a child is anyone under the age of 18. But there are 17-year-olds who are being abused, and that's where we would come in. But if a 17-year-old gives consent for sexual intercourse, there's nothing we can do there because she or he has passed the age of consent. So it's a touchy subject. It's a discrepancy when it comes to our laws and where our reach can get. But it's just something we have to deal with.
Let me ask you, Blossom, we're talking about child abuse, and very often we think about abuse in the more extreme case. Yeah. Put child in the one greater, and all of those things that you've heard of in the past. And there's a physical abuse. And very often you might get visible signs, a bruise, patch, something of the sort.
Right.
Emotional abuse. We grew up in a society where parents, adults, grown adults, we use some rather derogative terms to speak to our child. You're done stupid, you're just as bad as your
father,
you're this, you're that. How often do you meet those cases? And, I mean, how did you deal with that? I mean, and so what is some of the impact that those things can have on the life of a child?
You're right again, Joseph. Sexual abuse is the number one reported case of abuse that we see at the CPA. And even our upcoming assizes in the courts, sexual crimes dominate the assizes. So we know we have a problem there. Physical abuse, like you said, is easily identified. When it comes to emotional abuse, there are parents, even teachers, adults who are unaware that what they're doing to their child or a friend or somebody that they know is abuse. I remember doing a presentation to members of a church, and I was explaining to them some of the things that constitute the different types of abuse, and they were like, but we do that every day. That's not abuse. That's normal behavior because the child had or such and such is the case. But we look at it as trying to discipline our children. But the impact that it is having on the children is not as easy as trying to grow them up in the right way. Children take on things. Like once you hear twice and 3 times that you're dunce, you start to believe it. And to you, you're probably saying, okay, that would encourage them to read a book. But to them, it's just hurting their self-esteem. And sometimes you just have to take a moment and think, if somebody were to call me dunce, or somebody was to tell me a stupid, or look like my worthless father, or look like my worthless mother, how that gonna make me feel, babe? That's some of the things that we need to do. So we just need to ensure that we deal with our children how you would want to be treated. It's not just treating your family and friends the same way, but we have to do our children the same way.
I think the Bible, and even the first, one of the callers said it, love starts with you.
True.
Do unto others the golden rule as you would like things to be done unto you.
Exactly.
You don't want anybody to call you dumb, stupid. You don't want... And if you often, maybe the way I put it, if you think it's bad, when you say something to your child, think about your boss telling you that.
Exactly. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, think about your boss telling you that and how it makes you feel. Imagine your boss, Mr. Odekam, coming, but Joe, but you're stupid. And what you all of a sudden think about you selling that to a child as a grown adult.
How you feel.
But at least you are mature enough to handle it. Think of a 9-year-old. What happens inside of them? They start going, well, why? Why is mommy telling me this?
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
15 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock. We take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back on To The Point.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. As we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see, and the climate's changing. But hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice, together we start. Take care, the world where we live. Permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para guardar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are. One climate, one Caribbean. One climate, one Caribbean.
You know, one day I woke up and, you know, they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. You know, nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You know you're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you, indicating that they are going to cross. And only when you have come to a complete stop, that is when they will quickly and safely cross to the other side. And then you continue happily on your journey.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact, wait for pedestrian to cross. Then you happily continue on your journey.
This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
It's just over 12 minutes on to the hour in the morning time. And we want to say thanks for being part of the conversation, my guest here this morning. We're getting ready to wrap up the conversation. She's a corporate communications officer in the CPA, Child Protection Authority. Blossom, we're hoping that this should be the start of what will be a continuous conversation. But as we're getting ready to wrap, though, I think we've all agreeing, both in the capacity as parents and in a professional capacity, that the responsibility of protecting our child or children resides with us, the parent.
Yes, correct. We are, as parents, the first point of contact when it comes to our children. We can't expect the CPA to see a child that we don't know walking the streets, going to school or from school, and know that that child is being abused. It has to be somebody who is around that child every day to notice changes, to see the behaviors, to know when they need to reach out for help. And that's where parents come in, teachers come in, even pastors. You see the child once a week in church, but that one time that you see that, you may notice changes. There's a law that says you have to report cases of suspected cases of child abuse. Your job is not to investigate. Your job is not to be sure, but start the conversation or start that investigation by making a report. I saw a bruise on such and such child. The CPA needs to get involved. You don't have to come and tell me for sure Joseph is beating up his son. You just come and tell me we suspect, and let us handle it from there. You are a mandatory reporter if you are a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a pastor. Once you are a first point of contact for a child or children, you have to report suspected cases of child abuse, or you could be fined and or imprisoned if you don't.
But it has to be reason to it. For example, you see a child with a bruise, and he may say to you, I just came in to play football. But you're watching the bruise, but you're realizing
that look like a belt and not a ball.
That look as a belt and not necessarily a bruise you get from being on the field. Or he might tell you he was playing a game, but you realize, but it's way up on the shoulder. Yeah,
exactly. That's where being observant comes in, being able to identify these things. And as teachers, I think, not just as teachers, but as people, as a society, we need to educate ourselves about these things and what to look out for. I'm not saying you have to go and study it every day, but at least be aware, have some basic understanding of some of the things that you need to look out for in our children, to know when there's a need for you to be extra concerned about that child's safety. Sometimes we wait until it's too late. Sometimes we don't do anything. Or sometimes the first day that you see sign of abuse is not the first day that that child is being abused. You can be stopping a long or a lengthy time of abuse for that child or children once you just pay attention and report it.
Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year to Blossom. It's a long time. I've missed you so much.
Thank you very
much. My name is Sylvina Charles Lavery.
Morning, Miss Charles.
Good morning.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. 425-2041, and that is the number that is on the inside. We run out of the time, but you persons might be asking, because you just said, I know you enjoy the luxury now, Blossom, and you're not too happy with me forcing you into the studio this morning. Why isn't you're a bit reluctant to not visit me in the studio and want to have this conversation via Zoom? Tell Grenada now.
First of all, I've gotten used to being on Zoom, and thanks for this opportunity, Joe, because for the past 4 months, the Child Protection Authority, we've been working remotely. We've had a maintenance issue at the building, our physical building at H.A. Blaze Street, and we've been closed since October, but we're still very much functioning. As we speak now, we are making arrangements to once again establish a physical office where members of our family, as we call them, our clients, or members of the public can walk in and make reports if they need to or verify information. Once we finalize those plans, we will definitely share it with you. But in the meantime, if you need to make a report of child abuse or you need to get in contact with us, you can contact our emergency number or WhatsApp number. It's 533-6990. You can send us a message on our social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook. However, you need to reach out to us. If you know of a child protection officer, feel free to do so. But by next week, Monday, God willing, we will be able to share information of our physical space. But we are very much functioning. We are still very much involved in protecting the nation's children, and we are acting on all reports that are made to the CPA.
Even when they come from an outside agency, there's a story in the news as we wrap, where the IGPF, they confirm receiving reports from somebody on the outside, from another territory, that there was a child molester on the island with a child who's been exposed to some unsavory elements. What would be your immediate reaction from the authorities' perspective in dealing with them such a report?
Chief among us would be to collaborate with the RGPF, as they are the point of contact with the necessary information, get the information from them and see how we can help. We are involved. Once it's a case of child abuse, we get involved immediately and provide whatever support we can. Even if the RGPF are the ones that receive the reports, if there's an instance of the child needing to be relocated or placed somewhere, that's where we will get involved, and we do so immediately once there is a need. So we deal with it, even if it's as we would say, a foreign child or a foreign national, or involving a foreign national as a perpetrator. Once it is in our territory, we deal with it. Not just mainland Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique are part of our territory as well, and we will deal with it accordingly.
How much of emotional drag is it, and my final question to you, in dealing with cases where there is a case of abuse, there's no argument about it. Mm-hmm. Everybody is aware of it. And there's a case where you have to separate the child, where the perpetrator is forced to, the CP and other authorities saying, listen, she has to leave. Then it gets down to a case of who takes responsibility for the child. And the child is saying, I want to stay with daddy or mommy. But mommy and daddy, they are the perpetrators.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure how we would deal with that case, but when it gets to that, it probably is already in the court system, because we have to investigate and we have to talk with the child, we have to talk with the parents, the alleged perpetrator possibly, but we need to establish what's the best interest of the child. And then it may get to the court system, and that's when they may probably ask, what do you prefer? Very rarely would that child say, I want to go with the alleged perpetrator. It probably happens. I'm not too sure. I'm not in the court every day.
Because
but
you do have cases where it's the incident is reported, but the child may not necessarily see a problem with it.
Fair enough.
Because you've had cases where, and I remember we discussed it on the program, where they were talking about different things that parents, where they're trying to win a child affection. So they shower them in love and all of these different things, but they're abusing them. The child, in their innocence, is not seeing it.
Right.
All they know is that, well, auntie so-and-so, uncle so-and-so gives them this and all of those sort of things.
That's where the counseling comes in, because during the counseling we would try to explain to the child, this is what's happening and it's not in the best interest for you to go with the alleged perpetrator. Even if that's what the child may think they want, we won't let it happen, because we know the situation. They may not understand it fully, but we do. So we wouldn't let them go back to the home with the alleged perpetrator because they say so.
Right.
Children some may not necessarily have the understanding that it's not best for them, but we won't let it happen. That's part of counseling and ensuring that they understand what's taking place and why you can't go back with mommy or daddy, because this is a situation.
You evaluate, you probably might be forced to separate. The case is out of the court system, but I'm assuming as an authority, you do have a support structure that allows for monitoring and follow-ups and
yes, we do. I would admit we don't have the vast capacity that we need, especially to do follow-ups, because let's just say every day there's a new case and we have so many employees. So one person may be handling 20, 30, 40 cases at the same time. So whereas we need to follow up once a month, it may happen once every other month. But we do have that capacity to follow up and make sure that we provide the support that they need, and they can come to counseling whenever they need. There are some times when they refuse counseling or they don't show up for whatever reason, but we provide that space where you can come to get post-care, as we call it, and ensure that we can help you readjust to what would be your new normal, especially as a survivor of abuse, not a victim, but as a survivor of abuse.
Indeed, and you did also intimate that you do offer services as relates to adoptions and
yes, we do, and that's something Grenadians are not all Grenadians are aware of, that we have foster care and adoption services here in Grenada. We always have children who are seeking forever homes or a temporary shelter from an abusive environment. So we have that capacity. If you have an extra space home or you want to expand your family, feel free to reach out to us. We have children, we have babies, let's say 1 day old. We still have a few cases where parents give birth at the general hospital and they do not want to continue being a parent, and we have children as old as teenagers who need forever homes. So if you have that space, reach out to the CPA 533-6990 via WhatsApp, and we'll take it from there.
That's a conversation, no doubt, we are going to follow through on in terms of giving persons an appreciation as to exactly what the process entails and exactly the legalities that is involved in it.
Yes.
Can I then adopt? And can the parent then decide 5 years down the line, I'm in a better economic place, child growing up now, can I come back and say, I want my child? Those conversations, among many others, we're going to have, not today though, but at another time, but in the same place. Corporate Communications Officer in the Child Protection Authority, Blossom Alexis Welch. Blossom, it was a pleasure in so many ways. So many ways. Boom.
My dude. Thank you very much, listeners, viewers. Always a pleasure. It's not in the capacity as a host. It still feels weird being on this side of the table, but you're always my family. Thank you very much to GBN. Good morning, Mrs. Campbell, to the GBN newsroom. Joe, bless up yourself. Hi, Dorian. I see graphics getting ready to start in Hot. I hear Hot has cruise. Where my cruise ticket?
It's for employees.
Wait, joke making. Hold on. Much confusion here this morning. Thank you, GBN. Have a good day.
2 minutes on to the hour. This is Friends. We continue the conversation now, folks. It's always a pleasure to all listeners, viewers, wherever you are. JC, let you have a great one. I'm leaving you for now, but I'll be rejoining you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. On Saturdays, more music, less talk, and a whole lot of fun. Until then, so long, everybody.